You've probably heard the saying, right? In business, what gets measured gets managed. But when it comes to something as huge and complicated as sustainability, how do you even begin to measure what truly matters? Well, today we're going to cut through all that noise and get down to a clear, reliable way to measure real-world business risks. And that right there is the million-dollar question. I mean, you see it everywhere, companies all claiming to be green. So how can anyone, from investors to you and me, tell the difference between real action and just, good marketing? What we really need is a standardized yardstick, a reliable way to measure what's actually going on. So how do we get from these vague claims to actual hard numbers? Here's our game plan. First, we'll get to know the rulebook, what these SASB standards are all about. Then we're going to make it practical by focusing on products you literally use every single day. We'll look at the biggest challenges for that industry, and then we're going to do a deep dive into one of the most critical risks, water, and see exactly how you measure it and why that one number can change everything. To fix the whole greenwashing problem, you need one thing above all else: a common language. You need a way for a company in Brazil and an investor in London to talk about risk and mean the exact same thing. And that common language? That's precisely what the SASB standards were created to be. So, what are they? Well, think of the SASB standards as a set of 77 different playbooks, one for each industry. They're now overseen by the IFRS Foundation's International Sustainability Standards Board, the ISSB, which gives them some serious global weight. And their whole goal is simple: help companies report on the sustainability issues that are financially material. And that's the key phrase. It means the stuff that can actually hit the bottom line, like a flood shutting down a factory or a new regulation making a product illegal. What makes these standards so incredibly powerful is their structure. This is not just some vague list of suggestions. No way. It's more like a complete diagnostic kit. It tells you exactly who it's for, what specific risks to look for, and then, and this is the best part, it gives you the exact tools and the rules for how to measure those risks. That way, a report from a tiny startup can be compared apples to apples with a report from a global giant. Okay, so let's make this real. Let's take these standards off the page and apply them to an industry we all know. We're talking about household and personal products. The cosmetics, the soaps, the cleaning supplies. Yeah, the stuff you probably have under your sink right now. So the standard officially defines this industry pretty much how you'd expect. Companies making these goods and selling them everywhere, from big box stores to your favorite online shop. And that global scale is really key to understanding the challenges they face. All right, for an industry this massive, what are the sustainability risks that can actually affect their finances? SASB has crunched the numbers and boiled it all down to 4 really critical topics. And here they are. First up, water management. That's going to be our main focus. Then you have product safety, which is all about the chemicals used in these products. Third is the packaging life cycle. What on earth happens to all those plastic bottles? And finally, the huge environmental and social issues around sourcing palm oil. But for this explainer, we are zooming right in on that first one, water. So let's dive into the water challenge. For these companies, water isn't just an ingredient they put in the lotion. It's also absolutely essential for things like cooling and cleaning during the manufacturing process. Simply put, its availability is non-negotiable. In this quote from the standard, it just gets right to the point. This isn't some fluffy statement about saving the planet. This is a cold, hard business warning. Losing water access? That's just a polite way of saying your factory might have to shut down. It takes an environmental issue and turns it into a direct threat to a company's revenue and profit. So if the risk is that real, how in the world do you measure it? This is where the standard gets super practical. We're going to walk right through the key water metric, breaking it down into simple, easy-to-understand steps. Okay, first, we've got to get 2 key terms straight: withdrawn versus consumed. Water withdrawn is easy. It's the total amount of water you take from anywhere: a river, a well, the city. Think of it like filling up a giant bucket. Water consumed is the part of that water that doesn't go back where it came from. Maybe it evaporated, or maybe it actually ended up in the bottle of shampoo. The official protocol gets even more specific about this. Water counts as consumed if it evaporates, if it gets locked into a product, or if it gets discharged into a totally different river system. And believe me, that distinction is absolutely crucial for understanding a company's real impact on the local water supply. So, a company knows how much water it uses, but how does it know if that's a problem in that specific location? Well, for that, The standard points to one single authoritative tool, the World Resources Institute's Aqueduct Water Risk Atlas. This is huge because it means every single company is using the exact same map to figure out their risk. The key metric this tool uses is something called baseline water stress. The easiest way to think about it is as a competition score for water. It basically asks, how much water is everyone in this region, farms, cities, other businesses, taking out compared to how much water is naturally available? The higher that score, the fiercer the competition, and the bigger the risk is for your factory. Now, the Aqueduct tool breaks this down into several levels, but the SASB standard tells companies to focus their attention on the two riskiest categories: any location with high or extremely high baseline water stress. These are the red zones on the map where water scarcity could actually shut you down. All right, let's put it all together. Here is the final calculation that turns all this messy data into a single, powerful number. Step 1, you measure all the water you pull in from all your facilities around the world. Step 2, you figure out how much of that water you actually consume. Step 3, you use that WRI map to see which of your factories are in those high or extremely high risk zones. And finally, step 4, and this is the big reveal, you calculate what percentage of your total water use is happening in those dangerous red zones. Now, that probably sounds like a ton of work just to get a couple of percentages. So let's talk about why this metric is such a game changer. It's really about turning all that raw data into strategic intelligence. Just think about what having this number allows a CEO to do. Suddenly, they can look at a world map and see exactly which factories are the most vulnerable. They can go to their finance chief and say, hey, we need to invest $5 million in water recycling at our plant in Mexico because it represents 30% of our total water risk. And they can go to their investors and say with confidence, we get it. We understand our geographic water risk, and here's our plan to manage it. It totally changes the conversation from just guesswork to actual strategy. So we end up right back where we started. It all comes down to having a reliable yardstick. The SASB standard gives companies the tool to measure their risk with incredible precision. And that leaves every company and every investor with the real question. Now that you can measure it, how are you going to manage it?